there one day be a day in which you are prescribed a video game? Some doctors believe, yes, they can. From Akili Interactive Labs, they've developed a game called Project Evo. It's a new form of cognitive disorder therapy based on years of research. It's from Akili Labs in Boston. They say there's a lot of science based on it and that it's now actually the gold standard in terms of therapeutic treatment or teaching skills through games.
You mean like so science based on the effect that it has on people's cognitive abilities over time?
Yeah. So they're hoping that they're still testing this on children who have been dual diagnosed with autism and ADHD to see if this provides any kind of therapy or helpfulness in any way to them. And they're very confident that this will work. So it just becomes a question of, can this work? Can you one day be prescribed a game as opposed to being told, you know, maybe you should go get therapy?
Yeah. Well, I think it's kind of complicated in this particular case. Like, you can talk about more generally, can video games improve memory or concentration or things like that? That's one thing. But then it's a little bit more complicated to say, can it significantly help someone who has...
Can you use this as treatment?
Treatment specifically for ADHD plus autism. I mean, that's a pretty complicated constellation of psychological problems.
We talk about how games are good on that note. Like, we could talk about how neuroplasticity can be improved, and we can talk about cognitive development and teamwork and timing and all sorts of things. These are all positive effects, but does it have the same level of a prescription?
Yeah, that I don't know. I mean, it depends. Like, some prescriptions are to, you know, like, eliminate a fungus from your body. Others are to, like, get rid of a headache. So what a prescription is supposed to accomplish, you know, varies wildly. It could be that for people who have, like, a somewhat of a learning disability or something like that, then this sort of thing as a prescription could make sense. And you covered the story showing that playing Portal, I believe it might have been Portal 2, was more beneficial for certain cognitive abilities, improving over time than doing Lumosity games.
Which markets itself as something to train your brain.
So for that, then it might make sense. For actually fixing some of the behavioral or psychological problems that derive from ADHD and autism, then I don't know as much. I do believe that playing video games can help you in a lot of ways. Yes. But I think there's only so much they can do for certain types of mental impairment.
Well, there are also doctors who are, there are doctors on the side of this, of, you know, testing this. They're very confident that it will work out, that it will be good treatment. There are other doctors who are skeptical, such as Dr. Ernest Petapati, an assistant professor who specializes in treating neuropsychiatric diseases at Cincinnati Children's Hospital Medical Center, who says, you can play Super Mario and get better in a couple weeks. The question is, does that carry over to the real world? There's no doubt that whatever game that this is, they're going to get better at it, but what does that mean in outside everyday life? So could those, you know, whatever positive action you've taken transfer to real life situations?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, look, Super Mario is a pretty simplistic game in terms of its mechanics and everything. I think that if you're talking about like somebody who plays like tons of, say, StarCraft or something like that, where you have to do a lot more actions per minute, I don't think that it's possible that couldn't affect your reflexes or your concentration and other things. I don't know. I mean, you may lose a significant portion in translating it over to something else. But I think that it could have an effect. And I also think that if we're talking about video games as therapy, I mean, there's therapy in this sense where it's trying to sort of mechanically change the abilities of the brain. But then there's also just traditional therapy. Like, it could be that a game like, you know, The War at Home or something like that could provide actual therapy for something like, I don't know, PTSD, in terms of its story or in terms of its interactions, as opposed to just a result of doing the game mechanics over and over. Yeah. Like, it could be you could be working through problems by being exposed to a story that resonates with a person, like a more traditional psychotherapy.
I've definitely heard stories of people saying, you know, that playing this game story mode, you know, it changed my life, it opened my eyes, it made me realize that others are suffering too, it made me realize that my own pain could be mitigated through these certain ways.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that there are examples, but when it comes to medical testing, I'm not really sure how successful this even has the potential to be.
Yeah. I think it's worth trying.
It's worth a try. I think that's our consensus. What do you think of the idea of prescribing video games as treatment, as neurotherapy, per se? Let us know below in the comments, and please be sure to subscribe.